On our newscast tonight, the biggest political issue at the moment is a revision of the country's tax code. The government and ruling party lawmakers go back to square one in talks on Monday, aimed at hammering out a plan that skirts any controversy. Members of two aid groups that have already sent around 370 million won worth of medicine and other supplies to North Korea get the go-ahead for a visit. They'll travel across the DMZ on Saturday for a 4-day trip to make sure their aid supplies are being distributed to the rightful recipients. Is General Motors gradually reducing its presence here in Korea? Rising labor costs and geopolitical tensions in the region are two of the reasons GM is cutting back on Korea for its manufacturing needs. Stay with us for these stories and more.
Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Han Da-eun, filling in for Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Chan. Thank you for tuning in. We begin by zooming in on the power shortage issue here in Korea. Nationwide efforts to save energy helped Korea avoid a power crisis for a second consecutive day on Tuesday.
The Korea Power Exchange issued a preliminary power shortage warning this morning after power reserves dipped below 4.5 million kilowatts. But as the reserves hovered at around the 4 million kilowatt range during the peak consumption hours, no additional warnings were necessary. Officials added, though, that the risk of a possible blackout will linger as weather forecasters expect the scorching heat to continue until mid-September. The government has banned the use of air conditioning systems in public office buildings through Wednesday and has advised businesses to temporarily halt or reduce operations during peak consumption hours in the afternoon.
So, how can we as individuals participate in the ongoing energy-saving campaign? Our Kim Min-ji has some easy but effective ways to save energy at home and at work.
Demand for electricity is expected to top 80 million kilowatts this week, with the power used for cooling appliances accounting for about 20 million kilowatts of the total amount. Of these cooling appliances, the majority is consumed by air conditioners, which means the amount you avoid using at home will be a key factor in determining how much energy you can save. Experts say that up to 85 watts can be saved per household by turning off the air conditioner for just 30 minutes between the peak hours of 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. and switching to alternative options of using fans or ice packs instead. Let's take a look at other sources that eat up energy in your household. A vacuum cleaner sucks up an average of 1,182 watts of energy when cleaning. The washing machine, which runs for about an hour each time, also consumes up to 116 watts. So it's better to do your laundry all at once and avoid the peak hours. Moreover, you can save up to 35 watts with your electric rice cooker by switching off the thermal function. But it's office buildings and factories that make up for the bulk of energy consumption, as they account for more than half of the country's total power needs. Machines are often left on even when not in use, resulting in the waste of energy. Factories are advised to disconnect the power supply to machinery on standby and suspend air conditioning from time to time during 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. The Korea Electric Power Corporation plans to visit companies nationwide this week to encourage power-saving measures. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korea's import prices rose by...
For the first time since President Park Geun-hye took office in February, the government has given civic groups the green light to head to North Korea, in this case to oversee the distribution of aid supplies. The two groups are scheduled to begin a 4-day inspection in the North Korean capital on Saturday. Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
Two South Korean civic groups will visit North Korea on Saturday to monitor the distribution of their aid supplies. The trip, approved by Seoul's Unification Ministry on Tuesday, will be the first approved visit of a civilian group to the north since President Park Geun-hye took office in February. A total of 18 South Koreans will fly into Pyongyang from China on Wednesday and begin their inspection with North Korean officials over a 4-day period. The two aid groups will oversee the distribution of around $330,000 worth of medicine and other supplies to North Korean children. Meanwhile, the two Koreas will meet for their 7th round of talks on Wednesday in Kaesong as they try to reopen their jointly run factory zone in the north. Operations at the Kaesong Industrial Complex came to a halt after North Korea withdrew all of its workers in April amid an escalation in inter-Korean tensions. The shutdown has resulted in nearly $1 billion in losses for South Korean businesses with operations in Kaesong. Seoul wants a guarantee that Pyongyang will never push ahead with such unilateral closures again before reopening the complex, while North Korea has been pushing for an immediate resumption of operations. Experts are expecting the two Koreas to make some progress in Wednesday's talks, as it is their first meeting in weeks. If they fail to reach an agreement this time around, some say the upcoming joint military drill between Seoul and Washington next week may break any momentum gained in dialogue. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea's top nuclear envoy Cho Tae-young will meet with his Russian counterpart Igor Morgulov in Moscow on Wednesday for talks that'll center around North Korea. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, the two officials will discuss the security situation on the Korean peninsula and ways to resume the long-stalled six-party denuclearization talks. The six-party talks involving the two Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia have been at a standstill since late 2008. Despite only taking office in May, Cho has already met with his counterparts from the other six-party member nations to discuss ways to deal with Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. Korean-American Kenneth Bae, who is being detained in North Korea, has for the first time explicitly requested that the U.S. government help secure his release. Reportedly suffering from a range of health problems, the 45-year-old tour operator and Christian missionary has been moved from his prison camp to a hospital in Pyongyang. In an interview with the Japan-based pro-North Korean newspaper Chosun Shinbo, Bae asked Washington to actively urge Pyongyang to immediately release him. He was arrested in November and sentenced to 15 years of hard labor in May on charges of attempting to overthrow the regime. The U.S. State Department says the welfare and safety of U.S. citizens is its #1 priority and that it continuously urges Pyongyang for Bae's amnesty and release.
And on the nation's defense front, the Korean government has decided to purchase aerial refueling tankers and unmanned aerial vehicles to significantly enhance Korea's military capabilities. Kim Hyun-bin has the details.
Several F-15 fighter jets are bound for Alaska, but during the long journey, an air refueling tanker accompanies them, filling up their tanks mid-air. After 8 hours and 7 refuels, the F-15 lands at its designated base. The biggest perk of having an aerial refueling tanker is that it can significantly increase air and military operation time. With it, there's no need to fill the tank to its maximum capacity. Instead, the fighter jets can carry more heavy weaponry, increasing its striking power. The South Korean military has been trying to introduce these aerial refueling tankers for nearly 20 years, and now this goal will soon be realized. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration plans to select a contractor by October 2014, and will start making its purchase of the 4 tankers in 2017.
The basic strategy to purchase the aerial refueling tankers has been drawn up. We will set up a budget and announce a business proposal at a later date.
The administration also announced its preferred bidder for developing medium-altitude unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as drones, so that it can keep a close watch on North Korea's key nuclear facilities as well as military targets. The administration will start negotiations and plans to introduce the drones sometime after 2017. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Key figures from the finance ministry and the ruling party got together to discuss how to make a controversial tax revision plan less of a burden on the middle class and low-income households. Our Kim Hyun-ji reports.
The ruling Saenuri Party rounded up its lawmakers on Tuesday to discuss how the Park Geun-hye administration should rewrite the tax code. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok also attended the meeting. The government released a tax code revision plan last week, only to scrap it and start the process over again from scratch this week. The government's initial proposal drew heavy criticism from the opposition party and workers, who said the plan favored the rich and large businesses. At the meeting of lawmakers, the ruling party's floor leader Choi Kyung-hwan apologized on behalf of his party for failing to live up to people's expectations.
We requested that the government rewrite the tax code in order to reduce the burden on low-income households, while keeping it unchanged for the middle class through income tax deductions. We also asked the government to toughen taxation on high-income professionals and the self-employed, whose incomes have not been transparently exposed.
The tax code proposal that was made last Thursday would have increased taxes on some 4.3 million salaried workers with an annual income of more than $31,000. But the government and the ruling party are now looking into increasing taxes on workers earning more than $49,000 a year. If the baseline gets adjusted as such, some 2.1 million workers will foot a bigger tax bill. And that's about 2.2 million people less than the government's initial tax plan would have affected. The adjustment would also mean tax revenues falling by about $270 million. To make up for such a revenue shortfall, the government is now looking into ways to prevent tax evasions committed by high-income earners while avoiding additional taxes on large firms or individuals in a higher tax bracket. But the opposition party wants the government to retract tax cuts on the rich altogether. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
Moving over to the tech realm, the smartphone war is far from over. Apple will reportedly unveil its next iPhone model on September 10th, the same month that Samsung is set to unveil its next version of the Galaxy Note. Not to be left out, LG rolled out its latest smartphone just last week, setting the stage for the latest showdown. Yurian reports.
Smartphone shoppers will have a new line of top models to choose from major handset manufacturers come this fall. Apple is expected to unveil its new iPhone model on September 10th, a day before the IFA Consumer Electronics Show ends in Berlin, according to technology blog All Things D. The new iPhone model comes about a year after Apple introduced the iPhone 5 last September. While there are no details out on the new iPhone, market watchers say it will have the iOS 7, which has a whole new look for the iPhone menus and icons. As for new exclusive features, analysts have brought up the possibility of a home button that has a fingerprint sensor embedded within it. The new smartphone also may be Apple's first lower-end handset, reflecting Apple's efforts to target price-sensitive consumers as demand for high-end smartphones begins to shrink. Now, Samsung Electronics is also expected to roll out a new smartphone, its Galaxy Note 3, at the IFA Consumer Electronics Show on September 4th, just about a week before Apple's big iPhone announcement. The Galaxy Note 3 is expected to be the first smartphone with 3 GB of RAM, as all the smartphones previously only had 2 GB. A greater RAM capacity will allow the Note 3 to have faster processing, along with enhanced multitasking capabilities. Meanwhile, LG Electronics recently unveiled its latest smartphone, the G2, just last week, signaling the opening of a three-way battle in the coming months. When taking a look at global market share of these three major players, Samsung and LG have seen their market share grow in the last 2 quarters, while Apple saw its portion shrink in comparison. The competition is only expected to get fiercer in the coming months, as Samsung tries to maintain its position as industry leader, while LG will move to play catch-up with Apple. Yurian, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, some 200 artifacts from Korea's ancient Gaya kingdom have been uncovered in the southwestern city of Namwon. They were found in a series of tombs and carry significant historical value. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
On a hilltop of Korea's southwestern city of Namwon sits a series of tombs that dates back to the ancient Kaya kingdom that lasted for more than 1,000 years until it collapsed in the 6th century. And from these old Kaya tombs here, some 200 artifacts, including rare gilt bronze shoes and a bronze mirror, were excavated. This is the first time gilt bronze shoes, although severely damaged, were found from tombs of the Kaya kingdom. So far, they have been excavated from tombs of the Baekje Kingdom, another ancient Korean kingdom that was located in the southwest region of the Korean peninsula. The uncovered bronze mirrors are estimated to have been buried some 30 years ahead of Korea's national treasure bronze mirror number 161.
Considering other burial items like earthen pots and the shape of the tomb, I'm guessing it dates back to roughly 475 or 500 BC.
Korea's archaeologists say the excavated artifacts will be groundbreaking resources in studying the relations between the ancient Korean kingdoms. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The digital age has changed the way all of us live, and the business world is no exception. Companies have always had to evolve with the times, and these days they're using technological advances to better their business models.
And the next big thing may just be something called big data. For an introduction to big data and for information on how Korean companies are using it to their benefit, we have our Kim Ji-yeon live in the News Center. So Ji-yeon, what is big data and where did it come from?
It's a term that refers to a collection of data that is so large, complex, and diverse that it is difficult to process using traditional tools and applications. Google is probably the best and most prominent example of a company dealing with big data. The tech giant relies on data from its search engine, including information on search histories, demographics, locations, and times, in order to find a result for the user. Whenever you search for something on a website, Google is collecting your data about your behavior. The tracks you leave behind can be valuable when combined with the behavior of millions of other people. It may show a trend, and it can be used to identify a problem or the needs of online users. For that reason, it can provide a new market or investment idea for companies that are willing to respond to these emerging ideas.
Well, it's clear how big data can be very useful for businesses, but even before big data, companies were collecting information to come up with marketing strategies. So what has changed, Ji-yeon?
Daniel, the traditional ways of collecting data mainly come after a product is sold, like the profiles of consumers, the records of sales and inventory, and so on. This helps predict market needs for future reference. But big data is all-encompassing. It includes data on the contents of people's smartphones, what they click on, or what they're posting to social networking sites and websites. Whereas it would take about a month to collect information using traditional ways of data mining and reflect it back into marketing strategies, it only takes a couple of minutes to predict consumer trends and needs with big data. Take a look how this big data is being used in Korea. With the development of information and communications technology, companies in Korea are increasingly incorporating big data into their business operations. The application of big data to business is still in its initial stages in Korea, but it's expected to broaden the horizons of existing markets as well as lay the foundation for new ones that have yet to emerge. Take a look at a Korea-based analytics company that applies big data technology to real estate. Punongsang 114 provides information to real estate agencies or to industries related to construction using its own formula created by big data. Having used big data for more than 6 years now, the company says it now has a comprehensive and systematic set of programs that can provide solutions to its customers.
With our solution package, you can check up on the market value of a property and its fluctuation rate in real time. The data we collect and analyze can help our customers make a wise business decision.
The company said it would have taken a month to do the same work with precision, but now it only takes a day using the big data technology to collect and analyze its database.
This is significant since companies can quickly adapt to consumer needs and changes in the market. The primitive data that Pudongsan 114 and other analytics companies collect for analysis come from databases like GeoVision, provided by SK Telecom, a local telecommunications company. SK Telecom's GeoVision provides information about its subscribers by using location information provided by mobile service operators and payment information from credit card companies. The telecommunications company can then instantly identify purchase patterns in a business district of its 27 million cell phone users and categorize them according to the age of the user and the time of usage.
Well, Jian, I can see that big data can be very useful for companies that want to get ahead or better predict consumer trends before their competitors. But is it absolutely necessary for companies to incorporate big data into how they do business?
Taeun, I asked this question to an expert on big data, and he gave me a very compelling example. Ham Yoo-gun, a local expert on big data, compared it to the emergence of the digital camera. Ham told me that companies can still get by these days without incorporating big data, much like in the initial stages of the digital camera. But sometime in the future, companies that have not consolidated the new technology into their business model may find themselves overtaken by rival companies.
Change the landscape of how companies gather their information, just like how the digital camera forever changed photography. Companies that refuse to incorporate big data could one day become obsolete, much like Kodak, a centuries-old camera manufacturer that based its business solely on film and refused to go digital.
So no one knows when exactly the big data phenomena will become mainstream in information gathering, but it's virtually a foregone conclusion that at this point that the paradigm shift is inevitable.
Right, get with the program or get left behind. So Jian, what should companies or entities be aware of when they're using big data?
Well, first of all, Daniel, companies should have a specific goal when incorporating big data into their business. This means they should try to identify a problem that they want to solve or a specific goal they want to achieve so that they know exactly what they're looking for when mining for data. A lot of companies first jump on the big data bandwagon because everyone else seems to be doing it. But then they find themselves wandering forward without any sort of direction, and then they lose interest in the concept altogether. So keep in mind that it may take time and patience to make it work. Next, you have to find the right person to do the job. Your data analyst who is in charge of interpreting collected data should be knowledgeable about a wide range of fields, including statistics and psychology, but they should also understand the field they're working in or the company they're working for.
All right. Thank you, Jian, for that report.
It's time for weather. That means we turn to our Hannah Kim. Hannah, please do tell us that it's going to get a little bit cooler tomorrow.
I wish I can tell you that, Daniel, but it won't. In fact, the weather will be very similar tomorrow as well.
Which means more sun and more heat. And when temperatures are this high, it's always crucial that we take care of the young and elderly, including myself.
That's right, Taeun. They are the most vulnerable to hot weather. That's not to say that adults and teenagers are exempt, but in all honesty, just try to avoid going outdoors for an extended period of time, especially from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Now, tomorrow we'll have more sunshine with strong UV radiation. So if we take a closer look at tomorrow's forecast, another sweltering hot day here in Korea. Our readings will be pretty much similar similar to that of Monday and Tuesday. Seoul will start off the morning at 26 and reach 34 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, temperatures in the south will soar close to the 40s as Daegu and Gwangju peak at 37 and 36 degrees respectively. Down on Jeju Island, you'll have clear sunny skies and the daytime highs will hit 33. Daejeon will peak at 35 while Mount Kumgang tops out at 34. Well, that's all I have for you today. I'm Hannah Kim. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for that, Hannah. And that's all from us for this hour. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Chen.
And I'm Han Daeun. Thanks as always for being here with us.